Taxes was feeling so stuck. Sitting in traffic, squeezing into a parking spot, all to squeeze in getting tax help during your lunch break. Now Taxes is a TurboTax expert who does your taxes for you, while you go about your day getting real-time notifications about their progress and the most money back guaranteed. Now this is Taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service, real-time updates only in iOS mobile apps. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees.
We will not be held responsible for any hearing impairments or damage caused to you from excessive exposure to this sound.
Happy Friday it is. What day is it? It's August 3rd.
Are you really asking me?
Dude.
You realize I've been awake for 2.5 days.
Yeah.
And I'm a little punch drunk.
And why?
Okay.
I don't know why you punch drunk. I mean, being awake for 2.5 days would do that to somebody. But
I even missed the interview.
I know.
Today.
Let me tell you something. It was very bizarre, and we're going to have the interview coming up later on with Juan Eliel Garcia, who's running for Congress down in Florida. Let me explain to you how hard it was to read through my question, take notes on the answers, and then normally, because we usually go back and forth with a lot of things, I can just let you pick up, and I don't even have to. So
we just kind of flow.
So
we're like water.
After the first couple of questions, I'm sitting there and I'm writing stuff down as he was answering. He was very gracious to come on the show today. But he'd stop, and I'd stop taking notes, and I'd look to my right, and there was nobody there. And I go, okay, so I guess I should keep going and have a rebound. Yeah, it was.
You know what was weird is sometimes today, because where I was, all of a sudden I would look to my left and feel the need to start talking, but I didn't know why. So
I do that anyhow. To my left, that's the problem.
Okay, well, apparently, so here's the thing. There are there are not any no trespassing signs on F-16s. So apparently, you leave the cockpit open, you leave the keys in it, somebody's at an air show, one thing leads to another. Next thing you know, I'm hiding in the bushes for 2.5 days before I'm able to make it back here to the lair.
Now let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
When was there a club on it?
No, and that's my point. I mean, obviously there was no reasonable expectation made. I mean, and nothing was done to secure it. So, I mean, really, why not take it for a test drive? Another thing, never put the landing gear up before the aircraft is rolling.
I thought you knew that, though.
What am I, a pilot?
No, not at all.
Okay.
That doesn't change the fact that I thought you knew that.
Why would I know that? How else is the thing supposed to fly?
Well, that's a good point.
Thank you.
But there's something I learned has something to do with lift and thrust, but I think there has to be some sort of...
Yeah, I learned that too.
Like 2-3 miles an hour, I think that's all it needs.
I don't know. Does that answer your question for where I was?
Not at all. But you know what? Honestly, I don't care. So coming up on the show tonight, the phone number, by the way, is 347-205-9399. I got feedback that I don't think we said that more than once last week. So
I think I could figure it out, though. I can totally fly it, I think, next time.
No, I think you're in. You know, I think it's amazing is you have the mark where the mask would go, and
oh no, I eventually got it airborne, even though there were no wheels, because I put the landing gear up. I figured it'd be almost like a transformer and like stand itself back up and get itself all ready to go again, but it didn't.
Doesn't it have an autopilot switch? That should do that, right?
Well, yeah, I tried hitting that button, but
so and when we're not doing Piven Watch, which is a regular on our show, and I looked. She's not doing anything lately, and that's Clint's favorite person in the world, Frances Fox Piven.
That's a good thing she's not doing anything.
So
the Ghostbuster lady.
I try to have... Thank you. I try to have a little something for you when we get on the air. I try to have a little bit of a just something that, for you, like it relates to you in some way, shape, or form. I couldn't find anything on.
Really, you've never done this before, so don't act like this is like some.
I didn't say I looked hard.
Segment.
I just said I tried to.
What do you got?
Vern on the news desk, who, by the way, is going to have a scoop for us next week.
A scoop?
A scoop.
Like a vanilla ice cream?
Like a news scoop.
I'm a little punchy. I apologize.
But she did find a piece of news. As soon as I heard the clip, I thought of you, and I'm just going to play it straight away.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Clint Eastwood just made Mitt Romney's day. The Dirty Harry star and Oscar-winning director of Unforgiven and $1 Million Baby endorsed the Republican presidential candidate Friday night during a Sun Valley fundraiser. I think the country needs a boost, Eastwood told the Associated Press as he joined other Romney supporters for the private campaign event. In February, Eastwood told Fox News he wasn't supporting any politician at that time. Some saw the Halftime in America ad he made for the Super Bowl as a nod towards President Barack Obama. Eastwood responded then by saying he was not politically affiliated with the president. Now more than ever do we need Governor Romney. I'm going to vote for him, Eastwood told Romney supporters Friday night. He just made my day, Romney said. What a guy. Now back to Sackheads Radio.
So that's my little...
So now, I'm confused. Was that Vern saying that she's going to vote for Romney, or was she quoting somebody?
You know what? I'll have to ask her. Maybe
because Vern is not conservative.
No.
And how she puts up with us, I have no idea.
She's pretty independent.
She's awesome.
We love Vern.
We do love Vern.
We do have a news break later on that she does for us. So, again, the phone number is 347-205-9399. So that was my little thing for you. You're...
Well, I appreciate that. What am I even doing here right now? I seriously am having such a hard time formulating any thought.
You're talking into a water bottle. You're not doing a lot.
It's not a water bottle. Look, I saw the tweet go out. I know because it was my soda bottle that was actually in that because I'm trying to caffeine up right now.
So anything else going on in this fun and exciting week?
I don't know. The Olympics are here.
The Olympics are here. And you know what's amazing is gymnastics, swimming. The Americans are making a really good showing this year.
Yeah, they usually do, and we're proud of all of our athletes. I love to cheer on for our country, cheer on our young athletes. Let me ask you something.
Can you think of a better way to celebrate them being the best in the world at something than to give them a medal?
Are you asking me as a conservative or as a liberal?
As a conservative.
Yes. A better way to help them celebrate?
Yes.
Don't tax them on their winnings.
Wait a minute, what?
That was not believable at all.
Hold on, let me try that again.
Okay, go.
Wait a minute, what?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, they get...
If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Every idea starts with a problem. Warby Parker's was simple. Glasses are too expensive. So they set out to change that. By designing glasses in-house and selling directly to customers, they're able to offer prescription eyewear that's expertly crafted and unexpectedly affordable. Warby Parker glasses are made from premium materials like impact-resistant polycarbonate and custom acetate. And they start at just $95, including prescription lenses. Get glasses made from the good stuff. Stop by a Warby Parker store near you.
Taxed on their winnings.
Well, yeah. I mean, honestly, if we're going to celebrate that, I'm a little dumbfounded by it. So if we're going to celebrate them, nothing says, hey, you represented us, you were the best in your class or whatever it was. It was a world stage, thousands of competitors. Don't forget to pay your tax man on your way back in the country.
Right. Well, let's think about this. So the Olympians get, when they win, they receive cash payments when they win medals. When they win a gold medal, they get $25,000 for gold.
Right.
For silver, $15,000, and it's $10,000 for bronze. Well,
none of which replaces the finances that a lot of them spent to get as good.
Stop making sense.
Okay, sorry.
So that's income.
Well, yeah.
And therefore it is taxed. And I'm not sure if it's taxed as income or as like a bonus, but it's...
Well, no, in our tax code, there's probably a special location for Olympians where they get taxed at a higher percentage?
I'm pretty sure it's under the how can we screw people who've represented our country and beat everybody else in the world and represented their country well and stood on a podium while our nation's flag was raised, and how can we get money from them?
Does it ever end?
Well, Marco Rubio, Senator Rubio, is trying to put legislation into Congress. He put a bill into the Senate that would exempt U.S. Olympic medal winners
in the future
from paying federal taxes, at least on their prize money.
It's just, can anything in this country be accomplished without taxing? I mean, seriously.
No. You know the answer to that question. Why would you?
And now whenever I see, I've been watching, and that's almost why I hate the Olympics, is because I know I have to go to bed at a certain time, and I'm up to all hours of the night watching. But
that's a whole other issue, because NBC can air this stuff live. The bad with the internet, you can't get online and open even just a homepage without knowing the results of what you're going to watch in a few hours anyway.
I have to duck everything. And because
seriously, NBC, why not just play it live? I mean,
well, because during the day, and I don't have the ad, but they've been playing this new ad by Obama, and I don't want to go into it. Have you seen it yet? Which you have to make a choice.
Actually, you know what? If it's the ad I'm thinking of, where he's sitting there, he's like in a white collared shirt and a tie, and he's like talking to the people. And I don't know what you're about to say, but I actually think that ad is very well done.
Oh, it's very well done.
I don't agree with the president's policies. He is a very likable person. And we've talked about this. I would love to sit down and just have a beer with him and just talk. I would talk about baseball. I'd talk about football. I wouldn't talk politics with him just because we're so different, and that could get heated.
I was going to say that would get ugly.
It would. But, I think from anything I know or have read or have seen, just my own observations, again, I don't know the man personally, but he seems like a good husband, seems like a good father, and it seems like a likable guy that I would have a conversation with. But I strongly disagree with his politics. But I think that ad is actually very well done, and I think it's effective.
I hate it.
Especially for people that don't pay attention to what's going on or don't understand the nuances or the underlying things of what's going on in this country and kind of what's behind some of the progressive movement and so forth.
I hate it.
Why?
Well, I will tell you.
I hate it because it's well done.
It has nothing to do with the politics.
Okay, go.
So the first time I watched it, it was after, I think the first time I saw it, it was after Missy Franklin won her first gold medal. And it was the next commercial after the win. And
well, yeah, why wouldn't you play the president after that? Because the U.S. just got some tax money coming in.
I thought it was like a congratulatory thing.
Okay.
So I was like, hey, this is cool. Because there was no little runner on the bottom saying paid for by blah, blah. So I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. The president's going to congratulate her on her first gold medal. I figured it was pre-recorded, and if it happened, fair enough type thing. And then it was a political commercial. And I'm like, what a bummer. I'm sitting here, I'm all happy because, hey, look at, she won her first medal. It's a big deal, and she's a young girl and working her butt off at it. And then I get sucked into a political ad.
Let's be fair, though. I've seen Romney political ads also, paid for by the RNC.
I have
to be fair.
I hadn't seen them when I was watching the Olympics. All right, mostly it's because I was duped. That's what I was mad about.
Okay.
I was mad because I was like, oh, good for him. That's exactly, oh, great, it's a commercial. So I had my expectations that he was out there congratulating, and I was severely let down.
And I'm sure I'm going to get called a hippie for this, but let's be fair. He did, after Michael Phelps broke the record for most decorated Olympian, he did call him and congratulate him.
Oh, well, yeah.
And did speak with him personally. I thought that was a good thing to do. But you know what? That's what a president should do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like I said,
and he did that.
Aside, he seems like a pretty nice guy.
Well, he's likable.
Yeah.
And that's where Romney's going to run into trouble. I've heard this analysis before, and I absolutely agree with it, is President Obama is a much more likable person, personality-wise, than Mitt Romney. And now that's something that Mitt Romney may have to overcome. But if anything's going to sink the president for re-election, I think it's going to be his policies, which, in my opinion, have failed miserably.
And hopefully that's what people start focusing on and don't. Listen, the first time around, he won because he was a likable guy, and I hope people don't make that same mistake. And we're going to talk a little bit about his likability later on in the show. But coming up now...
We are?
Yeah.
We just talked about it.
Oh, then I guess we'll scratch that off.
Perfect.
Fortunately, we're going to have some time to kill.
Well, that's a good thing because the Oakland A's and the Toronto Blue Jays are actually locked in battle right now in the 15th inning. It's 4-4. So while we play this interview, I'm actually going to go watch the game.
So coming up
Is
right
that
now.
okay?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Perfect.
I'm going to eat the rest of the pizza. Coming up right now, we're going to play the interview with Juan Eliel Garcia. He is a Republican candidate out of the 23rd District of Florida. Last week we had Karen Harrington. This week he was gracious enough to join us. It's a long interview. There is a little continuity issue. About 5.5 minutes in, he lost power at the campaign headquarters. We kind of had to start over. But instead of starting from the very, very beginning, we just kind of picked.
This is an honest question. Did they lose power because they forgot to pay their bill, or?
No, it was a brief power outage.
I didn't know.
And it was the entire building. So if you hear a little bit of a continuity issue there, I apologize. I didn't edit anything that he said out. Well, I'm just going to play it. So this is our interview with Juan Eliel Garcia. I should note this is my interview.
Really? You have to rub it in? I was literally hiding in the bushes.
Happy Friday. It's August 3rd, 2012. This is the Sackheads Radio Show. Right now on the phone with us, we have Juan Eliel Garcia, who is a candidate in the 23rd District Congressional race in Florida, the seat currently held by Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Mr. Garcia, how are you this morning?
Good.
Taxes was waiting around for your taxes to be done, which led to worrying about not getting any money back. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes in a day to get you up to $4,000 fast with a refund advance loan. Now this is Taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Expert filing only available with TurboTax Live Full Service. Refund Advance has $0 loan fees and 0% APR. Refund Advance loans may be issued by First Century Bank, N.A. or Web Bank. Terms apply. Subject to approval.
Joe Montana here. In my football days, I knew the importance of a strong defense. Now I'm sharing how you can help defend your health against pneumococcal pneumonia and invasive pneumococcal disease. Are you 50 or older like me? The CDC now recommends vaccination against pneumococcal disease. Even if you're healthy, your age puts you at increased risk and over 6 times greater risk of hospitalization with pneumococcal pneumonia than adults under 50. Schedule your appointment today at vaxassist.com.
Sponsored by Pfizer.
Good. How are you? I'm Sean. It's a pleasure to be on air and to be able to talk about the issues down here in District 23.
Yeah, and for people that don't know, it was District 20, and then when it went redistricting, it's now the 23rd. So if you're like me and you're looking up information, that makes it very difficult sometimes.
Definitely. Yeah, it was the all 20, that's right. The redistricting gave Florida an extra 2 congressional seats. So now the new lines, which now these new lines, I got to say, they make more sense in terms of when you look at the map. So it's now District 23.
Yeah, I was looking at that the other day, and it definitely makes things a lot more streamlined, and it keeps the areas to themselves instead of, because before there was almost some cuts and some very thin lines that were hard to follow, so to speak, on the map. So why don't you tell us about yourself? What's your background?
Well, my name is Juan Eliel Garcia. I'm the only candidate in this race that was part of the Army. Since I was 18, I was in college, and I decided that I wanted to join the Army back when the President Bush, the father, declared war against Saddam Hussein. And I said, this is the time for me to do something for the nation. It was probably a child thought, but I joined the Army, and I was blessed enough I didn't have to go to war. Was in the Army for 6 years. I got married, began working for a company called Waste Management. I went up the ranks from a dispatcher to a senior ops manager. I moved into Florida to open my own business, which I had for a few years and then sold. It was a transportation company. I've been working with the community since 2004 down here in Florida. And this brought me up. I got a call one day from Congress, and they said, you've been nominated for a congressional recognition. And I was like, this got to be a joke. Well, it was true, and I went to Washington, and Senator Marco Rubio, Ileana Roslet, and then Mario Diaz-Balart and David Rivera recognized my work with the community. And then for a few years now, we've been looking at the political arena and understanding that we are going the wrong way and wrong direction. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is definitely not doing what she was asked to do by the people down here in South Florida, and for those that voted for her, of course. And overall, we've seen that on a daily basis, the decisions and the lack of attention to our community was demanding for someone to step up, someone with the ability to defeat Debbie. And after just, looking at the numbers, and of course, we've been involved with the community for the last 8 years down here in Florida, well, we thought we had a better chance to defeat Debbie because, as you know, and most of our audience will know, our numbers are not favoring. The numbers down here in South Florida are not favoring the GOP. And we knew this challenge was going to be as big as it is when we entered the race, but we had something in our favor, and it's the fact that we've developed relationships, we've developed strategies to work with the community and to be able to see that cross vote from the Hispanic and independent voters down here in South Florida.
Well, and that brings me back, when you say to work in the community, can you just give us a few examples of the work you've done in the community?
Of course. Well, my main job right now, I'm a radio host at La Nueva 88.3 FM. It's a community radio station, not a political radio station. And part of my job for the last 8 years, I've been building up relationships with the needs of the suppliers and needs in the community. Job fairs. We've been hosting probably 2 to 3 job fairs per year. Health fairs. We've been hosting even immigration fairs when we get people that are in the process of a legal immigration status with the right lawyers and making them understand the process for those that are in already the steps to become legal residents. And besides that, we've been involved as a counselor. My major is psychology, so I've been a counselor. I am part of an organization that helps the community. It's called New Helping Hands for the community. So all these things we've been doing here in our area for the last 8 years.
So you have a psychology background and you're a professional radio host. I might be in a lot of trouble in this interview. So what made you decide to jump in the race? What made you say, hey, you know what, now's the time, I have to do this?
Well, it was a long process. To be honest with you, probably like 5 years ago, we began to see the need of someone to be able to step up and truly fulfill the responsibilities of a representative, of a congressman or a congresswoman, which in fact, and which in the original definition of this is someone that could have a tight relationship with the community and understand the needs of the community, the desires of the community, and be able to convey that message in Washington and in every process of any step of the decision-making process, which we're lacking right now. And so because of that, throughout the last 5 years, we've been thinking of this and paying close attention to what was happening. But actually last year, after a meeting with a group of leaders here in the district, we asked them, I think it's the time, should we do this? And they said, it is the time, we're backing you up, and that's why we decided to do it.
So we're talking to Juan Eliel Garcia. Juan, Eliel, why don't you tell me, there's rumors that Debbie Wasserman Schultz may be exploring a gubernatorial run in Florida. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because Debbie, the rumors have been out there for a while now, and that she's been trying to go into different ventures. She wanted to go into the Secretary of State. She wanted to be. She wants to step into Hillary Clinton's shoes. A bunch of comments out there, which again shows us that professional politicians like herself are just trying to use every step of the way just to climb up one step higher. And this is just another proof that we have the wrong congresswoman working for us. And I'm saying the wrong term. She's not working for us the way she should, but we have the wrong congresswoman elected. And this is the time, and I'm telling you, we have what it takes right now to be able to defeat her. I mentioned this before, and I have to just repeat it over and over because people need to realize that we are on a blue district, and in order to defeat Debbie, we must elect a candidate that has the better abilities and opportunities to bring in the necessary voters into this race and to this year, once and forever, just move her from that seat.
Yeah, and it's, I still find it breathtaking. I grew up in Massachusetts, which is a blue state anyhow, that district is blue and any part of that Florida is blue. It just doesn't strike me as it's such a blue-collar state, if you will, and a working-class state and a lot of hard-working people down there. It shocks me that would be the choice, but, unfortunately, the Democrats the last few years have gotten into this selling of a bridge, as I like to call it, where they'll say anything and everything to get elected, and they just pander, and they stay away from the issues and just tell people what they're going to get.
Correct. Yeah, well, you're saying it just right. I mean, our district, Broward County, which it's
Taxes was feeling so stuck. Sitting in traffic, squeezing into a parking spot, all to squeeze in getting tax help during your lunch break. Now Taxes is a TurboTax expert who does your taxes for you, while you go about your day getting real-time notifications about their progress and the most money back guaranteed. Now this is Taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile apps. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees.
Covers District 23. It's perhaps the bluest district or county in the entire state. We have the strongest battle around here. And as I mentioned before, we knew this was going to be like this when we entered the race. But we're also confident, man, this is the time. If there's going to be any time, this is the time to elect a candidate like myself, and I just want to be honest with the audience out there, a candidate like myself that have not lost track of the real issues. I'm not out there campaigning and fighting with my opponents. I'm here to tell the people, the voters, what do we need to do, why do we need to do it, and then hoping that I will get their support coming, of course, August 14th, but the most important day is November 6th.
Absolutely, and obviously you got to get through the primary, but November 6th is a huge day for the district and the country at this point. You talked about what Debbie Wasserman Schultz isn't doing as a congresswoman. What do you think the job of a congressperson, woman or man, should be?
You know what? It's funny because yesterday we just had a debate here within the district, and 4 of the candidates, we were there yesterday, and they asked the same question. The other 3 opponents came up with their ideas of what a congressman needed to do, and they all had their own preconceived ideas of what they were going to do once they get elected, or if they get elected, and they missed the most important one, which was, representation. When you are a congressman, you're not there to bring up your own ideas. Yes, you must have a plan. Yes, you must have a strategy. But the most important thing is to be able to be connected with the community. We are the liaison. We are the connection between the districts and Washington. And this is what we're having right now. We're having a Debbie Wasserman Schultz that forgot about the district, forgot about the community, and she's just pandering whatever the party says, and she's just one more button that's going to push in favor of whatever Barack Obama says. So what we need to understand is that as a congressman or a congresswoman, we need to be able to have our ears in the ground and know what the community is lacking, what's needing, and, of course, go back to Washington and fight and work for it. That's what we need to do. Yes, I have a plan for the economy. I've been involved in business down here in South Florida for probably 8 years now. I've been a business consultant. I know what's going to happen in South Florida in terms of the ports. Miami and Fort Lauderdale are going to become perhaps the most important ports in the entire nation once 2014 is over and Panama begins flowing all the loads through Miami. And of course, jobs are going to be created. And I've been involved in the transportation industry since I was a kid, probably like 18 years old. So I have a plan for this. I have an idea for this. But the most important thing is to be, as a representative, is to be in contact with the community. Instead of spending, the entire week traveling and doing campaigns to make some money for your campaign or for the party, you must spend time within the district. And that's my number one goal. We need to return to those bases. Every congressman, since the inauguration of Washington and this position of a congressman, knew and understood the fact and the importance of listening to the community. And once you go back to Washington, you must go and fight for what the community is needing.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that representatives all over the country miss is they don't leave their finger on the pulse of the community they represent, and they get caught up in issues that are frankly outside their scope of importance and understanding, and they don't stay true to their home state, which are their people, which is who they represent. They get caught up in a lot of senatorial stuff sometimes, I think, and states' rights, and that's the senator's job. So
Correct.
Why don't you tell us what personal characteristic do you think can help fulfill that, keeping your finger on the pulse of your community, of your the district you represent?
Listen, I told you this before. My background, I've been a community leader, and I've been a faith-based community leader also. I've been a pastor, an associate pastor within my community for the last 10 years, 14 years actually. Before I came into Florida, I was already an associate pastor in my community. And one of our jobs as a pastor is to be able to listen. And I think that's lacking in our days. Character. Let's talk about character. If I can't say yes, I won't say yes. And that's one of the things that, as a politician, people need to understand that politician doesn't mean you're going to be a liar. It means that you're going to be polite.
Yeah,
And
there's too many false promises given out nowadays.
Correct. And if I can't say yes, I will not say yes, but I will tell you why I can't say yes. And that's what we need, character. We're lacking character and leadership. Yes, the economy is a consequence of the issue, the real issue, which is lack of character and leadership. And that's what I could bring into this race. I mentioned at the beginning of our interview, I am the only candidate that actually served in the armed forces. And, I have to thank God for that opportunity because it helped me to create and build this character that I am so proud of today. And that's what I bring into this race. My other opponents have missed the sight of the importance of this race. They're now attacking each other, and I've told them face to face, we're losing track. We're costing our party. We're hurting our party with this nonsense. We need to come back into the reality, and it's that we need to defeat Debbie. We need to bring some sense into our parties, into our districts, and we need to work for our people.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And that's, we talked about this before. It's really frustrating, I think, as a voter, which I am, when I see the people that I'm supposed to be picking getting into a slobber knocker versus and having a personal destruction and the traits versus the issues. And I think that's something that everybody, left and right, needs to get back to. So if that's your best personal trait, what do you think is one that you should improve upon before you represent the people? Or while you're representing the people, because that's certainly an option as well.
Definitely. We all have to grow. We all have to learn. And I am one of those people that believe that every day I go out and I expect to learn something. So I am willing to learn as much as I can throughout the process, which I have and I will. To identify one thing that I have to do, it will be strong, hard or difficult, because I'm sure that there's many things in which we all have to grow and learn. But my personal attitude towards learning is that I'm ready and I'm capable and I am willing to learn every day. And it's interesting because government is changing so much. The dynamics within our nation is changing so much that there's no president, there's no presidency candidate that is ready for his position, and of course there's no congressman, even if you've been elected already or not, that's going to be ready for what's going to happen in 2012. So what I can tell you is that I'm ready to learn, I'm willing to learn, and I'm going to put all my effort into being the best congressman possible for this district.
Yeah, and I agree with you. It's an ever-changing field, especially with the world being how it is right now, the economy, and we're going to get into that a little while. But I agree, people need to stay to their personal traits and what they ran on, and I think that as voters look at that, even if they don't always agree, they can go back and say, well, at least they're staying there. That's what they ran on. They're staying with it. We knew that getting into it. We may not always agree, but at least you can respect a person who stays to their values.
Correct. Listen, something that I've worked on in the last 9-10 months that we've been running this campaign is to surround myself with good advisors. Of course, I wish I could tell you that I know everything and every issue under my wing, but the truth is that there's so many things happening, and one of the priorities within my campaign is that we surround ourselves with people that are serious about what we're doing, serious about the future of our nation, and that they're knowledgeable of the issues. And in every aspect, in the economics, in the defense, and every aspect, we have someone that's immigration that's working with us in order to be knowledgeable all around the arena. So once we go into Washington, we could work in the behalf of the best side of our community.
And that's it's one of the things too. I think politicians forget is that you're not going to go in there and be able to be an expert on every single topic, and you have to have advisors that are trustworthy, and you have to trust them a lot of times. And obviously you do your own research into something, but you have that expert sitting there, and I just don't think that a lot of politicians now rely on the experts they hire enough. Let me ask you this: what do you think our brightest moment as a country was?
Our brightest moment as a country. Well, I could perhaps point out a few of them. Let me tell you. The day that Ronald Reagan was elected as a president, that was a beautiful moment for our country. His entire presidency was a good moment for the country. Let me tell you, the day that President Bush, and I'm going to sound perhaps awkward here, but the day that President Bush, the father, showed those clips how the U.S. Army was able to win that war in a matter of days, that was a proud moment for the country. Even Bill Clinton, when he left presidency and our budget was at a good standing, that was a good moment for the country. And those are the days that we need to go back to, days in which our economy is sound and strong and that the American proudness is there again.
Yeah, and, you know, we've talked about the Clinton era, and one of the things that he did that I think a lot of politicians can learn from, and again, we're more a conservative show, so for us to say this, but, you know, he was able to communicate with both sides, and he brought both sides in, and he really sat them down and said, hey, you know, we got to work together. We're in this together. We can have our values and we can have our differences, but the common goal is the people. And for me, that's one of the things we've said on the show several times, that we give President Clinton a lot of credit for bringing both sides to the table and getting a lot of work done on that.
And I agree with you. I can't agree more with you. Let me tell you, we are living in a blue district, and the key to be successful in this race is to have the same attitude. There's some things that we're not going to vouch to. We're not going to surrender to. There's some common grounds that we're not going to just give up. But when it comes to that ability to communicate to the other side, to the blue party or to the independents, that's what we need to have the best candidate available. And I believe that I'm that candidate because I am, again, focused on the issues. And yes, we could agree to disagree. And if you don't agree with me, that's okay, but let's work on the true issues and the true problems, and let's work together so America, not only our district, but America, will be strong again.
Absolutely. So my follow-up question to that is, as a country, what do you think our darkest moment was?
Darkest moment was 2008 when we elected Barack Obama into presidency. I believe that many people just fell into his beautiful speech, but the reality is that Barack Obama was not ready to be the president. I guess we didn't vet him enough. I guess I would say we didn't pay close attention as we should have to his candidacy. He went under the radar too much, and we've now lost what I consider to be so important, and it's the American proudness to be America, to be the best we can be. We've vouched into that socialism mentality, which, you know, we're giving everything away even if we don't have it. We've put our country into never seen before amounts of debt, and we need to go back. We need to, this year, we need to rise up. We need to go to those voting booths, and we need to make sure that Barack Obama gets out of the White House and we elect a majority in the House and a majority in the Senate.
And I agree with you. I certainly agree with you there. So what do you think that taught us as a nation? You know, we elected a guy who probably wasn't vetted enough, wasn't ready enough. You know, he was only in the Senate for a short amount of time. He had no executive experience. So what do you think that taught us as a nation?
Well, I think when I say vetted, I just want to be careful with this, and let me be very clear with my description of vetting. And it's not coming out with gossips and lies and using words out of context. What I mean, and when I say vetting, I mean it's to actually have a serious conversation and analyze their track records. Who are they? What have they vouched for? Who are they committed with? What are their principles and ideas and values? That's what I mean when I say vetted. Obviously, if we would have known at that point what we know today about the relationship that Barack Obama has with special groups and entities, what he's been vouching for, and what he's been able to do, I mean, this is something that, of course, is an eye-opener. And this taught us a lesson, and that's why I agree, yes, we need to have serious debates, not about politics, about character, who you are, where you want to bring this nation to. See, I want to see Barack Obama facing a Romney and talking about the true moral values and the ideas of our founding fathers. Where do you want to take the country? Is it the same direction that our founding fathers wanted to take it? Then, yes, I'll vote for you. But I'm telling you right now, our founding fathers did not want to create a dependent nation. A nation that's going to be in debt with China in astronomical numbers like never before.
And, you know, you brought up a great point with the Founding Fathers. As far as the Constitution goes, how do you view the Constitution? Do you view it as a living, breathing document, as a lot of people say now?
I see the Constitution, and please, I hope people don't get offended. I see it as the second Bible of our nation. It's not there to be changed. It's not there to be manipulated. We need to respect the Constitution. And if it's expressed in the Constitution, the federal government has the right to work with it, abide by it. And if it's not, then leave it to the states. The Constitution is a document that we must honor and respect to the fullest.
Yeah, and a lot of times I think we spend more time tearing it apart than we do actually reading it, and I think it's being torn apart by people that have never read it, which drives me absolutely crazy. So in relation to the Constitution, how do you view the Declaration of Independence?
It's the same importance for me. And let me go back for a second to the Constitution, because I signed a petition, a proposal to amend the Constitution. It's proposed amendment number 28, which is telling basically that Congress shall not make anything as a law that applies only to the citizens and vice versa. And I loved that when I was proposed, when this document came into my office, and I agreed with it 100%, because I think that's going to bring in some sense of responsibility that we don't have today. Washington has been specialists in arranging laws in a way that others will be heard, but not Washington. So I think the time has come in which everyone should be under the same umbrella, and if it's going to hurt the nation, it's going to hurt the entire nation, including Washington. If it's going to benefit the nation, it's going to benefit the entire nation, including Washington. And you'll see how laws now are going to be considered with a different glass. And yes, the Declaration of Independence, it's great, and I'd like to analyze that in a different format, because it should be a document that every president should memorize. And I'm going to go back to Barack Obama. When we talk about independence and when we see what we're doing, we are becoming slaves of other nations because of the debt that we have today. Yes, we have to honor each of these documents, and we have to live every day trying to fulfill the intention of these documents.
Well, and I couldn't agree with you more. One of the things that we've talked about, and you talk about signing an amendment, we always bring up the 17th Amendment, and that's the one that gave the senators, the senatorial races, to be elected by the people and taken out of the hands of the state. Would you repeal the 17th Amendment? Would you put it back so that the states' rights are represented appropriately by the Senate, and it's not a mass, the people aren't voting for both the representatives and the senators, and because that offsets the balance, in my opinion?
No, you know what? Again, as I told you before, I respect the Constitution. And whatever is written there, and the Constitution says that the Senate of the United States, I believe, says it should be composed of 2 senators, right?
Yeah.
And the people were the ones that were to elect it every 6 years. I don't want to change a bit of that. I think that was a brilliant idea. And in contrast, that Congress, the House of Representatives, were to be for 2 years. And I respect that to the fullest, because, again, we cannot... We lose track. This was not a document that was just written down out of a rush and trying to meet a deadline. This was a well-thought document with men and women that knew what it was to live under oppression, and that envisioned a nation that would be free with the right balance among powers, and how the people were to be involved in the process of electing leadership. And I believe that this Constitution should not be changed, especially when it comes to selecting or electing officials.
Well, and it was, and that was the 17th when they said the people are going to elect the senators, and it was no longer the states, and the balance that was given to us by the founders was now offset, because originally it was the people elected the representatives, the state elected the senators, so that way they had their protections. And now with the 17th Amendment, it's now the people vote for both, and it messes up that balance, in my humble opinion.
Let me give you an example. There was a case not long ago. This senator got caught, I believe, for some pictures, some moral issues, and he had to resign. And then the governor of this state I don't remember the state, but I'll tell you in a minute. It'll come up to my head. The governor was now caught red-handed, dirty-handed, trying to sell that position to some other candidate. You remember that case?
Oh, yeah. I think it was out of Illinois. I think it was the seat vacated by the president.
And he was trying to sell that seat. That's why that amendment of 1913 was the right decision, because the people need to be the one electing who is the best person to represent them, especially on Senate. That is such a long term, and whoever gets elected is going to be there for 6 years. And imagine how much damage can be caused. Can you imagine Barack Obama being elected for 6 years instead of 4?
Oh, no, I understand what you're saying. I think my argument to that is, people have to choose their candidates wisely, and if that means for the state to represent, to elect their own senators and send them in, then you need to elect the people in your state that are choosing them. I know the issue originally came up with the corruption, and again, it showed its head with Blagojevich. But at the end of the day, people are responsible for the voting from the top down, and you have to do your city, county, state. You have to make sure that you're putting the people in the office that are representing things the right way, and they're honest, legitimate people.
Yes.
And I think we're learning that lesson time and again, more and more now. It seems like that when you choose the wrong person, the wrong things happen. And then everyone kind of turns around and says, why did that happen? Well, as we're seeing with this president, is maybe we didn't know enough about them, or you got caught up in how wonderful everything sounded, but you weren't really paying attention to the facts that were in front of you.
Correct. Sean, let me tell you something. And the further we go in with the process, the deeper we've been in the process of the election, now for August 14 and November 6, we've discovered some flaws. And again, we knew about them, but now we're living them in the flesh. Flaws within the system. The election system is corrupted. The election system is not the most open election process that we could have. And all these things and are in favor of people being misled into choosing the wrong candidates. And I'm going to tell you right now, misled to choose the wrong candidates. Let me tell you right now, if we don't have the people involved, we're going to continue to have the same people elected in these positions. Today, 2012, this year is going to be a year that we must ensure that every voter in our districts, in our counties, in our states, and of course in the entire nation comes out and vote. We are now facing one of the greatest challenges that we've ever faced in the American history. We must elect the candidates that are going to truly represent what the Constitution says, what our founding fathers wanted for our nation, and the best interest of our people. And if we don't achieve this, we are going to be in such a huge problem. 8% of the populations are the ones that actually come out and vote on primaries.
Yeah, and that's scary. That's so bothersome to me because, I'm one of those people since the age of 18. I've tried to vote in every single election. I think I missed one local election because I was out of state at the time. But I agree with you. I think people really need to start focusing on what's going on. Like I say, I'd rather see everything in text versus spoken because, I don't care how well somebody speaks. It's how well they're going to do. You can have the most eloquent speaker in the world, and the person, he's a great communicator. People really feel like they know him. That's great, but what are his policies? What are his points? Oh, well, I don't know. He just sounds good.
Yeah. And what have he done? I mean, what has he done? Let's check his record.
Well,
if he hasn't been in politics, let's go back. Let's see who has this guy been. What has he been doing for the community? What are his interests? What has he been preaching and living for the last years? You understand?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And, as far as the president goes, he was a community organizer in Chicago who has one of the highest crime rates in the country. So that kind of tells you what he was doing. And as far as Debbie, I was looking at her, Washman Schultz, I was looking at her voting record, and I can tell you what she's not doing is voting.
Number one. And number two, what she's been doing is voting for whatever the president says, not counting, not taking into consideration what the district is needing. And I'm glad you brought that point up. Look, she has a commercial running. We had that video that says, out of her mouth, that for the last 79 days, we've been traveling 35 states campaigning for Barack Obama to get him reelected. That tells me, sir, that she's not paying attention to our district. Her primary goal throughout this 2012 is to reelect Barack Obama. She has not worked for us. If you travel 79 days out of the 210 days of work that you have workable days that you have during a year, that's almost 1/3 of your working days. And if you work for any corporations and you tell your boss, I'm going to be absent for 1/3 of the days during this year, you are fired.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, good luck trying to pull that off at work if you're a regular job. Well, and she's also the chair of the DNC, and I don't know how she could possibly think that she could be the chair of the DNC and sit there and represent her district on a regular basis. It just seems like that would be too much.
That's a clear lack of respect towards the people here in South Florida. Let me tell you, I'm going to win this race, and I'm going to go to Washington, and I'm going to get all these type of offers to lead groups and to be the chairman of different organizations. And I'm going to promise you today and the audience, I will not take any other responsibility but the one that I was chosen for, and it is to represent District 23.
And, we've talked about fiscal responsibility a couple times. Right now we have about a $46 trillion debt, and I think it's, a $17 trillion budget deficit? I don't have the exact number in front of me.
More or less.
Huh?
More or less, yes, you're right.
Yep. It would essentially, with health care, it's going to push us even further. What do we do to fix the fiscal problems in our country right now?
Well, number one, we have excess spending in every department of the federal government, and that is a proven fact. What we need to have is a board going line by line and actually cutting those excess spending. That's the number one thing we need to do.
Well,
number two,
which department would you be in favor of shrinking in the federal government? Any that come to the top of your head?
My favorite one, and it's education. I will eliminate the Department of Education. I will have just a board, and perhaps I would assign that to even Congress to assign budgets and to get reports from the different states and send that money to the states so that the money is actually used in terms of education to each child. We need to return to our states the arts and physical education classes. I mean, we grew with these classes, and that made us the people that we are today, the professionals that we are today, that develop our abilities. So we need to give our kids the best opportunity possible to become the better Americans possible. So that's the one department that, no question asked, I will vote to eliminate.
And any of them off the top of your head that you think needs to expand? And I know it's weird for a conservative or a Republican to say, hey, we need to expand this part of government. Any of them that on the top of your head think needs to get bigger?
I would not say the word expand. I think that what we need to do is pay close attention to the Department of Defense and to make sure that the Department of Defense is funded. In January, coming January 1st, if we don't take the necessary measures, Department of Defense is going to be shrunk by almost $479 million. And we are not today living in an era in which we could risk ourselves to be unprepared, not well funded in the Department of Defense. We have a lot of enemies out there, and if we are not ready for them, we will get caught. So if you ask me, Barack Obama wants to eliminate $475 million out of the Department of Defense, I would ensure that if we could cut some fat there, we will do it. But if not, the Department of Defense needs to be properly funded.
Well, and, I'm glad you brought that up because my next question was Department of Defense. And again, this is always a thing for the Republicans where that's that sacred cow. Nobody wants to touch it. Is there a way that we can cut money in the Department of Defense without losing our efficiency? We have the ability to strike anywhere in the world in 24 hours. We don't necessarily need to keep as many boots on the ground abroad. I'm not saying that we need to cut boots on the ground in general, but is there any way that we can start shrinking Department of Defense without giving up our protection as a nation?
Yes, there is. I'm telling you right now, we will have to go line by line, item by item, and I'm going to guarantee you that if we take a serious look into our budget, we will find that every department has excess fat that we could reduce, we could cut. Let me give you an example. Department of Defense is now being investigated for the funding that was given to the different wars, Iraq, Afghanistan, and I'm not talking about the soldiers or the equipment. I'm talking about third-party companies after each event. Right there, I'm going to guarantee you there's going to be millions, if not billions of dollars that we could work with. But the most important thing is that we have to ensure that, as you said, we are ready to attack and defend our nation. And you said 24 hours. I would say 12 hours. We need to be ready for whatever comes. We're America. Everybody hates us out there. We have to ensure that we are ready at every given time to protect our people.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. I think when I said 24 hours, I think that was might have been a little exaggerated. I think I was giving them a little bit more time, but I agree with you. And I agree with you, too, and that's the thing that we constantly forget in this country is that there are people all over the world that would love to see us wiped off the map completely, and a lot of those people, they don't care about the democracy that we're trying to use to level with them and talk to them. They could care less about that. They just want us gone because our whole way of life is a threat to theirs and their opinion.
I was part of the Army. My brother's still in the Army. He served in 4 seasons in war, 3 in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan.
Wow.
And, of course, we have close experience with what war means, and the consequences of war. But it's something I could tell you. I will fight as a congressman to ensure that we will have our Department of Defense well-funded and that every soldier is treated with respect. The sacrifice that soldiers are doing and giving for our nation, sometimes I feel we treat unrespectfully, and that's got to change. That's part of what we need to bring back up into America, which is our pride, which is the honor of being in America. Let me give you an example. This is perhaps an internal joke, but we know of we're spending $200 in toilet paper and toilet seat.
Yeah. No, I know, and it's crazy to me, the stuff that they expand and a lot of that stuff, and I understand, too, that there are certain skunk works type funding that need to be done, and that money needs to come somewhere, and because that's why we have the ability to defend ourselves so much is development like that. But, yeah, there's some things that need to be cut without cutting our protection.
This is true. This is true. This is fact. This is true information. We have to see again when you give a blank check to someone, he's going to be tempted to use it to his convenience, and these are secrets that have been out there. They're been now uncovered. The Air Force was paying $10 for screws, and you could go to Home Depot and pay them for 15 cents.
Yeah, no, I agree. And now they want to buy biofuel for $59 a gallon. And
exactly. This is the agenda that's being pushed by President Obama and is being endorsed by Debbie Wasserman and Schultz. So, yes, the Department of Defense needs to be funded, but as you said, and we all know, every department, every agency in the federal government has enough fat so that we could have a balanced budget and we could ensure that we'll pay our debt ASAP and become the well-established America that we are called to be.
No, and I totally agree. And speaking, and we're more talking about the fiscal versus the military side, but as far as Obamacare and that whole fiasco that's going on with it, it was struck down under the Commerce Clause. The Supreme Court said, hey, no way, you can't force them to buy it. Do you believe that it's a tax?
Well, this is a tricky question because I was just having this conversation with some friends. When something smells bad and it looks bad, I am not going to try it. Okay? And
I'm certainly not going to let Nancy Pelosi tell me I can try it after it's passed.
Exactly. So I'm not going to try that one. I opposed to this mandate when it was called a mandate, but now that it was called a tax by the Supreme Court, a tax, I'm going to tell you right now, I will vote against it. America is not in a condition to tax anyone, and when you look at the numbers, we are all going to pay for it regardless if or we don't have an insurance. So we're not in a condition to that. Now, on the other hand, let's be realistic. We don't have the proper health program in the U.S. We are one of the top nations, but we are listed number 27 when it comes to health. So we need to ensure that we create a program in which we open our state lines and we create some competition among the health insurance companies. We have to get a program in which prior conditions are being taken care of. We have to create a program in which if a kid is still in school at 21, that he could be part of the parents' health insurance coverage. But we cannot have a program that violates the Constitution and makes it a mandate, and everyone has to do it. And it's still a mandate, because if you don't do it, you're going to pay it through a tax. So in that sense, I would vote to repeal it and start from zero. With some good ideas that are there already, yes, but we'll start from zero, understanding that America needs a health reform program.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody in this country that turn around and tell you that there aren't some changes that need to be made to improve upon, but Obamacare wasn't the answer, even though for 2 years we were told it was.
It wasn't. See, it was a lie, and I hope that people could realize this. Obama knew this was a tax. Obama knew about this. He wasn't naive, and Obama and the entire team were banking on it, and they said, let me tell you this. This was a meeting, and they spoke about this. Let's present it as a non-tax so we save Obama's image. But if stuff comes to shove, then we'll know that it's a tax, and we'll be covered under the laws of this nation. So what I would say is we don't want to pay more taxes. We're hurting our economy. I would vote against it with a condition that we must, as a party, as class number 114, we place a law, we place a bill that's going to be a health program for the United States of America, covering everyone that needs to be covered with the liberties and warranties that the Constitution gives us, and it's going to be successful.
No, and, it's something that needs to be done, and obviously I'm under the impression that Obamacare just needs to be defunded and turned over and gotten rid of and start over again. Again, I felt that was one of those things where that was a re-election campaign from the beginning where he knew if he got that passed, a lot of people would come out and vote for him, and they didn't really care what the bill was, just the idea of it. And we talked a lot about taxes and the healthcare thing. We both know our tax code right now is ridiculous, and it was kind of a big motivator for our country to push towards independence. Do you support a flat tax? What are your thoughts on taxes?
I have one of my supporters in the campaign. He's a CPA for 30 years now. And we've sat down and spoke about this issue. And he worked in the IRS, and he's now a private CPA for the last 20 years. So he has the background within and from the other side of the door or the gate. And he says, listen, Juan, if you want to get the true advice here is that we need to simplify the code. Simplify the code like it was at the beginning, where you would give your info, how much you make, and this is how much you got to pay, because it's so complicated today.
Mm-hmm.
A flat tax, 999 for me is not the right number. We've looked at it. We've overviewed this possibility of a 999, but it's not going to be enough to cover our expenses. It's not going to be enough to be able to pay the debt. So why preach about a 999 when at the end of the day it's not the right number? It's ridiculous, and it makes us look bad. If it's going to be a flat tax, it's got to be one that's going to work and that's going to be fair for everyone. I don't care if you make $1 million or if you make $1. That's what I suggest. And the most important thing is to simplify it. The book is ridiculous, and one law oversees one rule supersedes the other. And if, which is the actual IRS book, then you don't have to. So let's simplify it, and everyone should pay a fair share here in the U.S.
Well, and you brought up a good thing. That word gets tossed around all the time, fairness, when it comes to taxes. What is fairness as far as taxes, in your opinion?
Everyone should pay the same amount based on what they have.
Okay.
I don't think that if you are a millionaire, you should pay more than one that is only getting paid $30,000 or $20,000 a year, because you know what? And then we're fomenting or we're increasing the idea that you could be a bum and not work, because then you'll pay less to the government.
Yeah.
So if we're to use that flat tax should be all across the board, regardless of your income. That's my proposal when we talk about fairness.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think all it does is it penalizes people for being successful, and it gives people that don't want to work and not people that can't want to work. I'm not speaking about them. People that don't want to work, a reason not to work. One of the things that we've talked about before, too, is the idea of a national sales tax. Have you ever thought about that? And if so, what do you think?
If we were to do something like that, I would use that money just to pay the debt that we have today. And it's got to be a sunshine law, which is going to have a beginning and end date. And then once it's done, if we were to do something like that, and I'm not saying that I would propose it. I'm just saying if it comes up and the people of America are in agreement with it, I would, of course, the finances have to be there. The economics have to be there. We cannot be in the same condition that we are today, because that would only hurt our economy. But if we're in a better condition, one tax rate, sales tax rate across the nation with a purpose of paying out the debt, then yes, I'll be in agreement.
No, I think that's a great idea, actually, me personally. So I'm going to jump topics here a little bit and get into a little bit on the Second Amendment with the massacre in Colorado, and I know you guys felt this in Florida after the Trayvon Martin shooting. Why is there such a personal political gain on this agenda when it comes to the Second Amendment? What is your understanding of the Second Amendment? What do you think it is?
Second Amendment is the right of every American to have a weapon, to bear arms. Now, let's just be clear in something. This law was written, the Second Amendment, and I'm going to try to, you remember the date?
I'm sorry?
You remember the exact date of the Second Amendment? It was 1791.
Wow, that's pretty good. I didn't, off the top of my head, no, I didn't have that fact, so I am impressed.
It was 1791, and at that time, there was no Uzis.
No, not at all.
There was no M16s. The weapons at that time were just self-protection weapons. And I believe that we have this amendment. We must have the right to bear arms, and government should not get involved in that. But there's got to be a specific and clear guidelines of whom and what weapons you're going to have, and why do you want to have them. Because, look, laws are so not protective. For example, in Florida, you could buy a Uzi, and you could sell it tomorrow to another person just by signing a document. And this is what we're seeing all across the nation. People with the right to bear arms are buying weapons just to make some money, and they're selling it to others that are not qualified to have a weapon, and this is what we get. Number two, there's got to be a system in which we could track what just happened in Colorado. Why are you buying 6,000 bullets? There's no reason for that. So we have to be able to track that. And number three, weapons are not bad. Weapons are okay. They're legal. They're constitutional. What we need to know is why in the world are we criticizing weapons, but we don't criticize Washington. I'm sorry, I got to say this again. I say Hollywood, when they are selling the idea that if you kill a lot of people in the theater, you're a superhero. That's what we've got to be looking into.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, too, where, we've talked about this when it first came up a couple of weeks ago, is that Hollywood does this great job of making it seem glamorous to be involved in this outright gunfight, and it's just this wonderful thing. And that video games, and I've played video games growing up as a kid and all that, but it sensationalizes it and desensitizes it. The military uses video games to desensitize soldiers to violence, and that's one of the things where it starts to become a moral issue where parents, in my opinion, and this is just my humble opinion, but parents are not doing enough to instill in their children values. Hey, you know what? You can't walk up to a kid and stab them because it's going to hurt, or shoot them, and that is being lost, and that's where I think parents need to start taking their role as much as the government. Now, I don't agree that weapons need to be tracked. I think the simplest thing to do is start holding people that are violating the law accountable versus, taking guns away from those who are doing the right thing. Because that's what ends up happening is I feel that we jump into this whole, we got to start tracking all this stuff, and the good people who normally would have weapons, and I live in a state right now where it's really tough to get like a concealed weapons permit, but the kid across the street who bought it for $30 off to the back of the truck can have one, and they don't prosecute it. It should be one of those things where if you're not supposed to have a gun and you do, you're a felon or whatnot, they need to hold that person accountable and not hold the people that are doing the right things accountable. And
I agree with you. That's why I have no problem with Joe America to have a weapon or Juan America to have a weapon. Where I have a problem is when Joe America violates the law and sells it with knowledge or without knowledge to Joe Anti-America for $30 with a signature and a piece of paper, and then he says, well, I sold it to Joe Anti-America. That's all I know about this weapon, and that weapon is used to kill a bunch of people. There's got to be a better process to do that. That's not compelled. That's not compelled to the federal government. That's got to go back to the states, and the states got to rule on it. And if you buy a weapon because you are an American, that's no problem. But if you want to sell it, we got to know who to sell it to because we don't want you to sell it to the wrong guy. We have felons buying weapons in the black market today. And when I say black market, I mean behind the alley out of America that needs $20 to go buy a new weapon. And we must stop that today.
Well, and I think the problem we're running into now is, and I've said this before, everyone wants to blame the gun. And at the end of the day, the gun is an inanimate object. It could, if guns were never invented, these horrible things could still happen by these people. They would just find new and exciting ways to do it, which is terrible. we do need to crack down on the black market, and we need to make sure that when somebody's caught doing something they shouldn't with a weapon, or in general, as far as I'm concerned, they need to be punished, and they need to be punished appropriately. And we could get into our prison system and how it's more of a vacation for the most part now than an actual punishment. We've changed it so much. But at the end of the day, we have to make sure that, hey, they know ahead of time if they sell this wrong, they're going to go to jail. And it doesn't matter if they're the nicest person in the world. That's all well and good, but you have to be held accountable for your actions, and that is rule number one, in my opinion. Getting back to what you said earlier is, we didn't have Uzis when the Constitution was written, but it was relevant. The government had muskets. The people had muskets, and that was one of the reasons for the Second Amendment, is to keep a government from becoming more powerful than the people. And, originally, if the government had it, the people were allowed to have it. And I know what you're saying under states' rights, but you also, that's a slippery slope, because you have to start watching at what point do the states start infringing on the constitutional right.
Correct. And I was going to say, Sean, that as a congressman, future congressman here in Florida, I will defend the Second Amendment, the right of people to bear arms. Now, the rules of how can you sell that weapon or not, that's not a federal issue. So I would say that goes back to the state, and you decide if, in order for you to sell your weapon to X friend or X person, you must fill out the proper documentation. So we know. See, I don't have a problem when a fair American has his weapons. I have a problem when we're selling these weapons to convicted felons, to sick people that are causing now in our days so much damage and so much pain. And it has nothing to do with the federal government. It has nothing to do with a weapon. It has to do with the individual that they're taking the easy path to get $20 or $30 more because they know they're selling it to the wrong person. But since there's no watchdogs, they just do it as they want. So yes, as a congressman, and I've vouched to this, and I've spoken at different gun sites and gun shops, I am in favor of the Second Amendment. I love to go once in a while to the shooting range and use it as a sport. But we have to ensure that once you have that weapon, you are, as you mentioned, you are responsible for it. And you must understand that if you sell this to someone else that's not capable, that's not ready to have a weapon, then you're going to have your consequences.
Yeah, and I agree with you in that regard, absolutely. I want to move on now to Israel. And the Obama administration has pretty much destroyed our relationship with Israel. I don't know if you agree. I certainly agree with that. And they pretty much leaving Israel out, kind of out on an island of their own, so to speak, and they're surrounded by a lot of people that want to do a lot of damage to Israel. Right now, Iran, and they're nuking up, and you also have Syria. Syria is not a fan of Israel per se, and that's starting to become a tumultuous situation over there. Has he destroyed our relationship beyond repair with Israel?
No, I don't think so. I think that we still have with Israel a good relationship as a nation. I'm not talking about the president and his goals and policies. But as a nation, Israel knows that Barack Obama is just a period of time that's going to go away, and that they're going to be able to rely on us. This is one of my strongest issues down here in South Florida. We have probably like 8% Jewish population here in South Florida, and it's a huge concern for them. And, of course, for us, as a Christian, I stand by Israel. I've traveled to Israel. I've spoken to the people in Israel, and, they understand that America is their friend, and they cried out to ensure that we never abandon this relationship with them. Now, I applaud Romney for having this tour and going into Israel and ensuring the Israelites that once he gets into power, we will ensure that every relationship with us is going to get better, that we are there to back them up. And as I said throughout this campaign, every time I get asked about Israel, I am ready to defend Israel whenever needed. As a congressman, I will vote every time, over and over, in order to defend Israel when needed. But we have to respect Israel's sovereignty. They are a sovereign nation. They have the ability to make their own choices, and we cannot step on those choices.
No, and I agree with you there. It's one of those things where it's your best friend, and in my opinion, they are one of our best allies and one of our closest allies. you have to let them live their own life, but when it comes time to defend them, we need to make sure that we're right there. And that's me personally. That's not the show even. That's my own personal belief is, they are such a close ally that we need to make sure that relationship's there. They need to know that they absolutely have a friend in us, and that's not going to go away. That's not going to change. So how do we get that relationship back? How do we reassure them come January, and hopefully it'll be a different president at that point? How do we assure them, hey, you know what? We are still America. We are still here for you, and we are still protecting you.
Number one, we need to ensure that secrets are secrets. Our president has been an expert in leaking all of their secrets out, and it was so funny. I was just reading news the other day, 2 days ago, and there was a huge clip in Miami Herald that said it's been outspoken now. A secret, okay, a secret, and secrets are secrets, and if they can trust us with their secrets, then we're going nowhere. Whatever is confidential within Israel and America, it's confidential in terms of the military actions and plans that they have.
Absolutely.
And of course, give them the enough support in weapons and in intelligence and even personnel if they need them. We need to be there for them. Period. You said that they're our strong allies. I would say they are our only ally in the Middle East.
Yeah, as far as the Middle East goes, I was speaking worldwide because we do have a lot of allies. We have, most importantly, Britain, Canada. We have a couple other allies that are right there next to us. I was speaking, of course, about the Middle East. I couldn't agree with you more. And one of the things, too, and I saw a great video the other day, and it was from, I believe it was a Jewish coalition, talking about this president and how he's hurt the ties so badly. Never mind the economy and stuff like that. Do you feel that he's going to have a hard time this time around defending his record with Israel to Jewish voters, especially in this country?
So will Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Yes.
They expressed how they wanted to return to the old lines and how Israel should allow Palestine to take the lines of 1967. And now, of course, election year is here, and she's supporting Israel, and now she's supporting their authority and government. Sir, this is a joke, and I hope that every Jewish person in America understands that, you must not forget who they are and what they've been saying and selling throughout this 3 years, almost 4 years now. Yes, there will be in deep trouble. Yes, they will be hurt in the upcoming elections. And one of the evidence for this is the amount of money they've been collecting from the Jewish community. Barack Obama projected over $1 billion for his campaign, and gracefully we've been successful in beating him in the last 4 months in collections of money when it comes to money. So, yes, they're going to be hurt. Yes, they're not going to be supported by the Jewish community.
No, and I agree with you. And you brought up, and I want to make sure that we get enough time here, and we're going to talk actually later on in the show tonight. We're going to talk about the relationship between the Obama administration, Israel, and the Jewish voters in this country, as well as the regular voters in this country, and non-Jewish voters. You brought up Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Your thoughts on her one more time?
Debbie Wasserman Schultz, it's out of touch. Debbie Wasserman Schultz lost focus many, many years ago. She became a professional politician. She thinks that because this is a blue district, she's going to be able to win without any strength, without any effort. And I'm going to tell you right now, Debbie Wasserman Schultz will lose because the right candidate has arrived. My name is Juan, Eliel, Garcia, and I've been here involving myself with the community for the last 8 years. And every person out there tells me, Juan, I will vote for you because you have the right attitude and the right ideas for our district. Debbie Wasserman Schultz has abandoned even the Jewish community where she comes from, and she has sold out their principles and values just to preach in favor of Barack Obama. That's going to hurt her so bad this year, and we're going to have, for the first time in the history of this district, a Republican congressman going into Washington.
Well, and I appreciate your time with us. Where can people find you?
My webpage is Eliel for Congress.com, and Eliel, you write it ELIEL for Congress.com, and also the same way in Facebook. My offices are in Sunrise, Florida, and if they want to give us a call, we're here now working our campaign hours, 754-200-8988. We'll be glad to answer any other questions, and, of course, volunteers. We're 11 days away from the elections, the primary, and then we've got to run up to November 6th, so we're here to serve them too.
Me personally, I want to thank you and your brother for your service to our nation. As a citizen of the nation, I think it's one of the most remarkable things in the world when people will join the military and stand up for our country and answer that call when it's time, and I want to personally thank you for that, sir.
Thank you, Sean, for the opportunity. Thanks to all of your audience for being there with us throughout this hour, and God bless America.
Thank you, sir. Juan Eliel Garcia.
Hey, it's Sackhead Sean. It's time for the Wicked Pissin' News.
Vanessa Fields for Sackheads Radio. When President Barack Obama said same-sex couples should have the right to marry, it was national news for a few days before the presidential campaign and the country went back to business as usual. Yet weeks after a fast food executive doubled down on his opposition to gay marriage, debate rages on about equality, religious values, and free speech. In the wake of the Virginia Tech tragedy 5 years ago, the University of Colorado and other schools across the U.S. created threat assessment teams to identify and take action against students who might turn violent. Now, in the aftermath of the movie theater rampage in Aurora, some are wondering whether the system broke down. A Denver TV station reported this week that a university psychiatrist was so alarmed by graduate student James E. Holmes' behavior that she tried to bring him to the attention of the school's threat assessment team more than a month before the attack, but the group never met to talk to him because he had already taken steps to drop out. A military judge on Friday once again held the Fort Hood shooting suspect in contempt of court for showing up to the pretrial hearing with a beard he had been ordered to shave. Major Nadal Hassan, an Army psychiatrist, was fined $1,000 for a second time. The judge, Colonel Gregory Gross, then sent Hassan to a nearby trailer to watch the rest of the hearing on closed-circuit television, as he has done since showing up with a beard at the June hearing. Beards are in violation of Army regulations. Hassan's attorney said he keeps declining to shave the beard because he believes that doing so would violate his Muslim faith. Last week, the judge held Hassan in contempt and fined him $1,000. Gross said Hassan would be forcibly shaved at some point before his August 20th trial if he doesn't shave the beard himself. He said he wants Hassan in the courtroom during the court-martial to prevent a possible appeal on the issue if he is convicted. Hassan is charged with 13 counts of premeditated murder and 32 counts of attempted premeditated murder in the November 2009 attack on the Texas Army post. Hassan, 41, faces the death penalty or life in prison without parole if convicted. The U.S. economy generated jobs last month at the fastest pace since February, a sign it is resilient enough to pull out of a major mid-year slump and grow modestly even as the rest of the world slows down. The 163,000 jobs employers added in July ended 3 months of weak hiring, but the surprising gains weren't enough to drive down the unemployment rate, which ticked up to 8.3% last month from 8.2% in June, the 42nd straight month the jobless rate has exceeded 8%. The United States remains stuck with the weakest economic recovery since World War II. The latest job numbers, released Friday by the Labor Department, provided fodder for both President Barack Obama, who highlighted improved hiring in the private sector, and Republican challenger Mitt Romney, who pointed toward higher unemployment. It is not especially weak, but it's not especially strong, said Scott Brown, chief economist at the investment firm Raymond James. Sorry to have to do this, but it's time to head back.
Hour-long interview with Juan Eliel Garcia, and we thank him for joining us. Earlier today, we recorded it. Man, I like the fact that we can record an interview and chill out and talk in the chat room for like an hour. That was a blast.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get this G suit off.
Phone number is 347-205-9399 if you want to call and talk about the interview.
I want to talk about the interview.
I knew you would want to.
You know what? I think there is a reason why I wasn't here today, and I think that perhaps was a good thing. I have some issues with some things that he said. Where do I start? I at one point I just had to stop listening, but I'm kidding. Here's the thing.
I knew there would be some things that you would take.
Really? I'm not going to go there. Look, I'm sorry. I'm just reading the chat room. I wish I could say so much, but so okay. His brightest moment in American history was when Ronald Reagan was elected.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll agree that was a great moment.
Yeah.
I'm going to respectfully disagree that was our nation's greatest moment.
Well,
I'm going to play a couple. I don't know. Maybe bringing about the end of World War II was a great moment.
Absolutely.
Maybe when we won the War of Independence from Great Britain
that was kind of a big deal.
A big deal. Maybe when we framed in the Constitution, we put everything in place to start the gradual decrease and put the framework in place for abolition of slavery. I don't know. Maybe that was a good thing.
Well,
maybe no. Hang on, I got more.
Okay.
Maybe it was a good thing in our country when the Declaration of Independence was written. Maybe it was. I mean, come on, really, Ronald Reagan. Yes, it was a good time in recent history, but the greatest moment in American history. Okay, what else? His darkest. Really, the darkest moment in American history was the election of Obama in 2008. No. You had your hour-long interview with him. This is my turn. Okay, maybe 9/11 comes to mind as perhaps one of the darkest days. The Civil War, that seemed to be pretty dark. That wasn't like a happy time in our nation.
It could have been how I phrased the question.
Pearl Harbor. It's a pretty straightforward question.
Well, and
I mean, come on. He used political talking points, and this is the kind of stuff that, and that's why I like our interview formats where we ask personal questions, where we want to talk about, get to know the candidates, what kind of person they are. Are they principled leaders or not? Or are they just going to give us these talking points? And these are clearly talking points. Ronald Reagan, he's clearly just trying to get the conservative base, which I understand as a politician. But you know what? If you come on the show, we want to know who you are. We understand your talking points. We can read a commercial. Don't insult us by coming on and now just giving regular talking points. I'm sorry, but the people want to know who these people are. Who are we electing? Because the problem is we've been electing politicians for too long. The problem is we have people in there that don't really want to serve. They don't understand our foundations of where we come from and so forth. The darkest moment in American history, you come up with the election of Obama? Are you kidding me?
Well,
I mean,
I don't know if he thought I meant political history versus the history.
That's a pretty straightforward question. It's pretty open-ended.
But
if his focus is strictly political, then that's the problem. I would think I think that in my humble opinion, and you were the interviewer, I wasn't present, so I'm commenting on this as a spectator, as a listener, as a prospective voter, if I were in that district, and I can do that. So that's the perspective I'm coming from right now. He talks about how he respects the Constitution. You got into the 17th Amendment, and I don't think that he knew what the 17th Amendment was about, first of all, at a point. And it's clear that he had somebody either cueing him in or something because, he said something at one point about an example, a name that would come to his head in a moment, which he probably had somebody researching, which is fine. But he talks about restricting the Constitution, and then
You're hypothesizing.
What's that?
You're hypothesizing because I've used that phrase too.
I am hypothesizing. Look,
we didn't agree with a lot of what he said.
And you were the interviewer, so you should maintain your role as unbiased right now.
Absolutely.
I am a listener.
I was asking for information. That was the information he was giving.
You were, and I am commenting on that information because we are an opinion show. My turn. So, look, I told you I'm punch drunk right now.
I'm just going to turn my mic off and go home.
Perfect. he talked about how the balance was offset by the 17th Amendment, blah, 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 whatever, and he gives this example about Blagojevich, and he talks about how we need to stick to the principles outlined by our founders in the Constitution because the Constitution is the right way to do things. yet the 17th Amendment overturned what was supposed to be one of the great pillars of our government, which is the state representation in Congress. We talked about this a couple of shows ago. The senators were elected by the state legislatures to represent state interests. Therefore, you had the House of Representatives that represented the interest of the people. You had the Senate, who was supposed to represent the states, who were supposed to be sovereign, or part of a collective republic, but sovereign in and of themselves, which is why there's the 10th Amendment to protect states' rights, and then the president for the federal government. So when the 17th Amendment was offset, and he kind of touched on it a little bit, where he talked about Blagojevich, even though he didn't know his name. I don't know, it was all over the news, or the state that it was from, yet he talked about Obama. Anyways, I digress. So he talks about this, well, there's, and he kind of touched on it without really coming out and saying it, about the whole corruption issue, which is the premise that the 17th Amendment was passed under, the corruption issue. Well, we need to give it to the people because politicians are corrupt. That's the point.
Right.
That's the point. Politicians are corrupt. Why? Because people fell asleep. Yep. It's our fault that politicians are corrupt. So by turning it over to the people, you're not solving the problem. The people are still asleep. We need to start electing principled leaders, people who understand what they're there to do. And if we do that, we're going to get people in the state legislatures who are not going to be corrupt, and we're going to get senators who are going to actually represent the states. He doesn't get it, in my humble opinion. Maybe he does. He talked about, again, the Second Amendment, yet he talks about respecting the Constitution. I'll come back to that statement that he said, and then clear guidelines for what weapons people can possess. People are owning guns who are not qualified to own a weapon, or talked about being qualified to own a weapon. You know what? Being a citizen of this country qualifies me to own a weapon. Unless I'm a felon or something like that.
And I think that's what he was getting at.
Okay, so what's my qualification for being able to speak my mind? No. Do I need to be qualified to be able to exercise my First Amendment right to speak my mind?
No.
Do I need to be qualified in order to exercise my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, which I really don't want to do right now?
No, I was going to say that's not being enacted right now.
Yeah, no, not at all.
I think what he was saying with that, and the impression I got during the interview is that he meant felons as far as being qualified legally.
You know what? That's not what he said, and the reason I didn't take it that way is because then he follows up with 6,000 rounds of ammunition. Why? What's the reason for that? You know what? Well, I don't have to have a reason for that. How's about I want to own 6,000 rounds because I want to own 6,000 rounds? Maybe I like to shoot a lot. Maybe I have a lot of different weapons that I like to shoot, and I want to be able to shoot at different ranges, my different weapons. Maybe I enjoy shooting. Maybe I enjoy shooting targets. Maybe I enjoy having my kids shoot. It doesn't matter why I have 6,000 records. And guess what? As a representative of Congress, it's none of your business why I want to have 6,000 rounds of ammunition. And so you take that statement along with his other statements of guidelines for owning weapons and people qualified to own weapons, and I think it speaks volume. My opinion is he's a progressive. That's what I got out of this interview. I'm angry now. I need to get up and go outside for some air.
No, we just sat for an hour and did nothing.
What are you talking about? Our blog was on fire.
Yeah, no, our chat room was on fire.
Which is awesome. I didn't realize you could blog from 25,000 feet.
Well, like I said, my job there was to ask questions and get answers.
It was, and we have
your opinion. When I asked you, when we were listening, and I said, hey, when we come back, I want to ask you about the interview, I kind of meant, how did I do?
Oh, no, I know exactly what you meant, but I'm not going to give you that satisfaction. Look, you did a good job, and we've had these questions.
I wasn't looking.
Liar. We said you're like a wife. So I just need reinforcement right now. Yeah. Do you need some reassurance? Look, Sean. Look, you did a great job. I'm sorry I couldn't be here for you, and.
No, and I did take exception to the Second Amendment thing.
This is an opinion show.
And I interjected my opinion on that.
You did. And look, and again, I wasn't here for the interview, so I'm commenting on this as a commentator. I want to make that clear. You and I came up with these interview questions. I think we have a great interview format. I think we have a I think we have a solid foundation of questions that we ask that actually gets to the heart of a lot of these issues, and these types of issues come out. And I think because of our interview format, and yeah, I'm absolutely patting us on the back right now, I think that because of our interview format, we're able to get to the heart of the matter and get people's real opinion on things.
Well, and that's why we do it. And like I said, we collaborated on these questions and how we kind of format things, and I like the way we do it. I think it's different. I think it definitely gets the information that we're looking for when we do an interview. And
I think it gets the information that people are looking for, and it gives people a little more insight into their candidate as opposed to just, what do you feel about blah, blah, blah. Who cares?
Well, and we could do the
what kind of person are you?
Points all the way around. And one of the things I think we try to keep with is getting everyone the same ability to get out their answers, and you hear who they are versus their political talking.
I have a new question I want to add to our interview.
Okay.
Are you a dirtbag? I think that's a great question.
You know what would be awesome? The first time we asked someone that, and they're like, yeah, why?
But you know what? They're honest. I respect that. I would respect that.
I have a follow-up question from that. Do you steal my hubcaps? You know, like,
yeah.
What would you say to a guy that would say yeah to that question?
Yeah, okay. Now? In what way are you a dirtbag?
Right. No, I agree.
No, I was asking you.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Did you have a piece of that pizza earlier?
Actually, I did.
You'll find out tomorrow. The phone number.
Hey, how was that bag of chips?
205-9399. Well, I appreciate your feedback. Like I said, I thought he was sincere. I didn't agree with everything he said, but it's not my job.
No, I think he was sincere also, but I was simply commenting on. I wasn't talking about his sincerity. What I was commenting on is some of the things that I find troublesome, and the fact that he said a lot of the same things over and over again, which I have a problem with as a candidate. Yeah. Get to the heart of the issues. Don't just sit there and give me your talking points. We're asking very specific questions, and they're questions that are not yes, no. They're open-ended, and if you're just going to sit there and spout your same talking points over and over again, that's things we can get from a website. What else can we learn about you?
No, I agree with you. So anyone wants to call and ask about that, we'll take some questions in a little bit, but we are going to move on. Are you ready
Why?
to move on? Because we had other topics we kind of discussed.
What?
Well,
I'm asleep right now.
So one of the things that came out this week, and there's two videos sound clips I'm going to play. One is the Emergency Committee for Israel. And this is interesting, and I'll be first to admit I saw this the first time on the Mark Levin show. I like listening to Mark. And it's this video made by this group that kind of takes the White House to task over what the capital of Israel is. Are you ready to move on to this?
Move on to what?
Perfect.
Jerusalem will remain the capital of Israel, and it must remain undivided.
Is it the State Department's position that Jerusalem is not part of Israel?
Well, you know that our position on Jerusalem has not changed. Jerusalem policy, it's a permanent status issue. It's got to be resolved through the negotiations between the parties.
Is it the view of the United States that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, notwithstanding the question about the embassy, the location of the U.S. embassy?
We are not going to prejudge the outcome of those negotiations, including the final status of Jerusalem.
Does that mean that you do not regard Jerusalem as the capital of Israel?
Jerusalem is a permanent status issue. It's got to be resolved through negotiations.
That seems to suggest that you do not regard Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Is that correct?
I have just spoken to this issue, and I have nothing further to say on it.
Considered to be the capital of Israel, Jerusalem or Tel Aviv?
I haven't had that question in a while. Our position has not changed. Can we? You know our position.
I don't.
No. She doesn't know. She doesn't know. That's why she asked.
She does know.
I don't.
She does not know. She just said she doesn't know. I don't know.
We have long. Let's not call him Christy. Go ahead.
We don't know the answer. We don't know the answer. Could you just give us an answer? What do you recognize? What does you think?
Our position hasn't changed, Lester.
So if you want to know where my heart lies, look no further than what I have done.
Okay. Okay.
The last interview, I don't know who everyone else was, and the last interview was Lester Gonzalez, and he is from WorldNet Daily. Just took Jay Carney to task on that. And we knew what his stance was in 2008, but then when the State Department spokesperson there wouldn't answer it, it kind of leaves it open-ended. Because now the UN's involved, we're still dealing with the Palestine thing, what the capital is.
You know what? I'm going to say that Washington, D.C. is not the capital anymore of our country. What?
Is that our official stance now?
That's our official stance now.
Until the negotiations have been cleared.
Exactly.
So, and I bring all this up because, historically and recently especially, Jewish voters have a tendency to be Democratic voters. Not all of them, just like everyone else. But especially the last election, Obama really got a large sum of it. And it begs me to ask, if this is how, he treats Israel and can't even acknowledge the capital being Jerusalem, do you really think that he cares what's going on here? You know what I mean?
I'm sorry, what?
The opinion here?
No.
And he's starting to lose ground, and I'm wondering if this isn't going to be an Achilles heel at the last minute for him. And there was another clip from the Republican Jewish Coalition that I'm going to play in a few minutes. But let's look at the ally portion of it first, before we worry about voting and everything else. Israel is one of our close allies, is it not?
It is, but what are we talking about Israel here? Are you going to talk about Jerusalem?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about acknowledging Jerusalem as the capital.
Okay.
And the fact that he has further destroyed our relationship with one of our close allies.
Okay.
So,
because we could go several different ways here.
Which way would you like to go? It's open forum. You took the morning off.
I took the morning off. Are you kidding me? Do I need to post the video of what I was doing this morning?
So it's your choice, but I think that there's a bunch of different ways we could go with this, and I wish we had the time to get into all of it. For me, it comes back to that is a direct statement on his view on Israel, who is one of our closest allies. And the fact that he and his administration will not come out now and name Jerusalem as the capital says a lot.
It does, and he says it has to be negotiated or part of the negotiations process.
Yeah, between Palestine and
yeah. As I understand it, that region was taken by Israel during the war, correct?
Yeah.
7 days war, whatever, 6, however many. That's right. They needed one less day because they're awesome.
Yeah.
I love Israel.
They don't do it.
It would have taken us 12.
They don't screw around when it goes military time.
So they took that territory, right?
Right.
So by this philosophy of it's still under negotiations and whatnot, because they're saying they're establishing settlements and so forth, right?
Right.
So when are we giving back California?
Exactly.
And New Mexico?
Exactly.
Now listen, that was taken during a war, so no. Why are you laughing right now?
No, it's.
I think 2 stars need to come off the flag. And that California, and look, there's lots of state legislators in California that already want this to happen.
Yeah.
So why not just
the keys back over?
Yeah, why not just give it back?
I agree with you. At what point do we turn around and say, no, this is what it is. We need to move on.
Yeah, we're demonstrating the absurd, obviously, by being absurd. But hey, you know what? We do. Israel took that during conflict, along with other territories. So they claim that as the capital. Who are we? No, that's not your capital. What do you mean it's not my capital? I need to kick your ass again? I mean, come on, really?
Well, and can you imagine he would freak out if somebody contested Washington, D.C. as our capital?
Like the British. No. You beat us everywhere else, and that's all yours, but D.C. is still ours. You never got us out of D.C.
Right. And then
it's not even a state, so that's proof that it's still theirs.
Acknowledge it as the capital of the United States of America. Can you imagine? It's just.
I think we start a new movement.
What movement?
That Washington D.C. still belongs to the British. It was never properly annexed, and it was never incorporated into any state. Therefore, it was not incorporated in the United States, and it belongs to the British.
Why don't we trade them the Yankees?
We're going to give them the Yankees.
For Washington, D.C.
So they'll be the English Yankees?
Yeah.
That's That's ironic. the Great Britain Yankees.
So what I'm getting at, and I'm tying this into the election, and I'll eventually get there. What I'm getting at is, if you're a Jewish voter, and obviously Israel is a very important place to the Jewish people.
Really?
Yeah, I know.
That's good. Hey, Sean, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Sean. Sorry. He's beet red right now. He's the same color as his shirt and a tomato.
All right, so that was my stupid comment of the night, and I'll accept that. But you start looking forward to the election, and now this is going on, and there was a great commercial released by the Republican Jewish Coalition, and I'm going to play that right now, and it's by a guy who's a lifelong Democrat. And I just want you to listen to this and kind of see where I'm going with this.
Is that our music?
2008, I voted for Obama. I was a big Obama supporter, had a fundraiser at my home, gave money to his campaign. I really believed in him and believed in what he stood for when he gave a speech about the 67 borders. It was nothing that had come up in his campaign originally that really changed my mind about him when he had the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, to the White House. He wasn't just the Prime Minister of Israel. He really represented all of us, Jews, Israelis, people throughout the world who believed in the state of Israel. And he was disrespectful to him to a point that I had never seen. I think in the second term we're going to see the real Barack Obama. The real Barack Obama is not going to have any politics to deal with, any voters to deal with. I think he's going to change the game when it comes to Israel. He's going to place Israel in a position where they're in danger. Barack Obama is a terrible economic president. The jobs numbers are terrible. 1 out of every 2 kids who are graduating college right now can't find a job. The unemployment rates are as high or higher than they were 4 years ago when President Obama took over. It's time for a change. It's time for a new type of president. I'm a lifelong Democrat. I've never voted for a Republican for president, but this time I'm going to vote for a Republican for president.
So, and that's a commercial that was just released now. That sounds good. Whatever you drink.
I'm thirsty and I need more caffeine.
So, and I'm coming at it from this angle. If I'm the GOP right now and I'm trying to win some votes and I'm going into November, do you beat on this angle?
Absolutely.
And really point out what a non-friend of the Jewish people this president has been?
Absolutely.
Well, then I've made my point.
Okay. Yeah, perfect.
Well, and I'm curious to see if they're actually going to go at it or let it go. And last week, this past week, I should say, Governor Romney was over in Israel and visiting over there, and that's more than the president's been over there. The president said he may go the next term, but he hasn't been this term.
No, you look at his actions. Actions speak louder than words. You look at his actions, and yeah, I mean it's clear where his heart lies and where he stands on these issues. I mean he says one thing sometimes, but it's clear. I mean anybody who wants to look at the evidence and be honest with themselves about his history, his background, his upbringing, even the books that he's written, Dreams from My Father or whatnot. It's clear where his heart lies and where he stands. So I think Israel's a good point for the Republicans to hit. I hate to see any one party hammer strict party lines. Does that make sense?
No, and I understand what you're saying. You hate to see them go after almost one group of people in order to prove their point and use that group. But I don't think it's using that. I really don't. I think it's the other way around. I think the liberals used that in 2008 to get him elected, and now it's just time to say, hey, he's not the president you thought he was. He hasn't done anything. He's even disrespecting Israel, and he is almost outright, in my opinion. Look the other way now. Look at your options. You can put him back in the White House, but here's a guy who won't even acknowledge Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. What's he going to do when he's not trying to get reelected?
Was that rhetorical?
No, I'd really like your honest opinion on that.
You don't want my honest opinion on this. Okay. Really? Way to poke the tiger, Sean. So, look, you look at his history. Look at his. Let's take one example. I don't know who his regulatories are. Cass Sunstein. and the book Nudge that he wrote, talking about how to frame human behavior or choices through framed offerings or whatnot. For example, you can get people to move where you want them to move or make choices that you want them to make simply by framing those particular choices.
Right. You give them the options you want them to
have. You give them the options you want them to have, because when faced with options, people are going to pick one of the 2, 3, 4 things that are presented to them. They're not going to pick something else. It's just the way human nature works.
Right.
So by framing their choices, you can influence behavior. Okay. That's evil. I'm sorry, and this is the regulatory czar of Obama. If you haven't read the book, I've said on the show before, Nudge. It's a great book, not from the standpoint of it's a great philosophical book. It's a great book to get an insight on where this individual stands who's in Obama's administration. Look at other people he's appointed. I mean, you look at Van Jones and where he came from. He is a self-avowed communist. He's a 9/11 truther. He was in the Obama administration, and the only reason he's no longer in that administration officially is because, I think it was Glenn Beck that broke the story. Maybe it wasn't, so if it wasn't, I apologize. But he's the first one that really got it out there, to my knowledge, and the rest of the media kind of picked up on it because they had to, because it caused such a stink that this communist was in the administration. Obama tried to distance himself, yet you have Valerie Jarrett on record saying, we've been watching this young man out in Oakland for a long time. They know exactly who he is. You look at Reverend Wright, you look at these, and I know that's been beaten to death, but you look at Bill Ayers and the people that he has surrounded himself with. And
distance himself from when he gets called on it.
Yeah, or his father, his book, Dreams from My Father. Okay, it's what was his father was a communist. It's Look, I'm not saying that as a dirty word. I disagree with communists. I think communism has absolutely zero business here in our country. But I believe him to be Marxist. And, people may try and throw stones, oh, you're just racist. Marxist, that's just a term that's thrown around a lot. Guess what? If you meet the definition,
you're a Marxist.
You're a Marxist.
Yeah.
If it quacks like a duck and walks like a duck, guess what? It's probably a duck. So there's enough evidence there in my mind to support that position. And so if we have a second term with him, and you already look at what he's accomplished, quote unquote accomplished, through healthcare and so forth, and the fact that he's pushing food stamps on there, and the fact that he's trying to expand these programs in the federal government. We're looking at QE3 now again. Look, he's going to be unchecked. He may be checked in theory by the Congress, but he doesn't have to face re-election ever again. So what does he have to lose?
No, he doesn't have anything to lose. And the agendas that he has now, listen, he jammed health care through, and it really had a hard time going through considering he had the House and the Senate. And when he has nothing, and especially I'll tell you right now, if the Republicans don't get the House and the Senate, and if he gets reelected, we're going to be in even bigger trouble. Hopefully that'll happen, and hopefully we can kind of, even if he gets reelected and we have the House and the Senate, it'll give us some wiggle room. But, I am afraid of what an unchecked Obama would be politically.
Well, look at the executive order he just signed a day or two ago on education.
Right.
The executive order that established the race-based discipline system for public schools.
Yeah.
You need an executive order for? Are you kidding me?
Well, and this goes back to why is the federal government that involved in local schools?
I'm angry.
You want to take a caller then?
Do we have a caller?
Yeah, you want to take a caller?
Sure.
All right. Hey, you're on the air with Jackheads Radio. Hello? Oh, and they hung up. Well, then. That was nice.
Don't be scared.
Yeah, don't be scared. We're a friendly group here. If you get a chance, 347-205-9399. Yeah,
we're friendly unless you're an idiot. Then we're going to tear you up and hang up on you.
Hey, you tore me up earlier. Yeah, we go into it more and more, and I'm going to be really interested to see, which is why I played it tonight, how the GOP goes after Jewish.
Hey, did you know something?
What?
This is a direct quote.
Okay.
Did you know that African Americans lack equal access to highly effective teachers and principals, safe schools, and challenging college preparatory classes? and they disproportionately experience school discipline. Did you know that?
Is that a generalization?
No, that's actually in the order that was titled White House Initiative on Educational Excellence.
So in other words, he's just creating another divide between us. He's essentially saying that it's yet another level of divide.
He is dividing us again. And where does that information come from? And why is the White House issuing an executive order on this?
I don't know why the Department of Education exists in the federal government.
But this doesn't even come from them. This came from the President of the United States.
I understand that.
An executive order, which let's not talk about the constitutionality of executive orders. Maybe we should on another show because that would be awesome.
Yeah, no, I don't understand why either. Because it's like he has to have his hands in everything. It's weird how much power he likes to grab. Don't you agree?
Well, yeah, because if you want to be total government, you have to grab total power. What part of this aren't you grasping, Sean?
It scares me. I'm telling you, it scares me more and more. When I was listening to those commercials, I did some research. It just scared me because I'm like, if he's going to do this now going into an election, going into an election, for me, that's just extremely cocky because you're really pushing away a large amount of your vote. And then you are trying to get yourself elected. You're willing to be this standoffish with one of our big allies. And what's he going to do afterwards? What's he going to do when he's unchecked? What's he going to do when he doesn't have to worry about 4 more years? You know, unless he tries to pass something that says maybe he can get elected after 4 more years. But, I mean, he might as well try. He's tried everything else, right?
Yeah, you know what? Okay, here's one for you. Let me throw this out there. So he tries to get elected for 4 more years. Let's say he succeeds. And what if there's a majority in the House or the Senate or whatnot that allows him to, better yet, there's a national emergency that allows him to issue an executive order to suspend the Constitution and seize power in order to protect the country. Wow, this sounds so 1936-ish.
Which he can do.
No, he can't do. Are you kidding me right now?
All right. It's been allowed.
No, it hasn't. When has it been allowed in this country?
Oh, in this country?
Yeah.
Oh, never.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so what you're saying? So what you're saying is, if people are asleep, it could happen because it has in history before.
Yeah.
Name one.
Germany.
Oh, yeah, never mind. Don't do that. Yeah, don't, because then people start looking at the parallels, and that'd be a bad thing.
Well, you know, we say it again, check your facts, do your research. I don't know how many times we say that.
All the time.
Know it's coming up, and it's
you didn't even react to that possibility.
Me?
Yeah. You asked what would happen if we had another term, right? What if that happened? FDR did how many terms? 4 terms. Yeah. And after he was done being president, Congress said, oh, my God, we need to put an end to this. and term limits for the presidency was established, right?
Yeah.
That can be repealed.
It can be repealed.
Or what if he did it that way? What if he just seized power? Well, let's go down this road.
Well, we only have 3.5 minutes left to go down.
I don't care. Let's go down this road. We got 3.5 minutes. Let's go down this road. Here's my questions. What would certain leaders of the military do?
Well, and
what would the citizenry do? Would we have another civil war? Are there Americans who would stand up for liberty? Would they fall and just live with tyranny? Would some of it be like just this communist, Marxist, lovey, occupy utopia of lovingness?
I couldn't hit the music button fast enough on that one. No, and you know what? That's why before it gets to that point, it needs to be changed. And him and his supporters in Congress need to be booted. And we've said before, neither one of us are 100% behind Mitt Romney, but I've seen what this guy can do, and it's sadly, I'd take my chances at this point. And I know that's not the answer, it's the right answer.
What choice do you have?
Right.
Here's the choice you have.
Leave him in.
Yeah.
And have it get so bad that it never happens again.
Yep. Because what happens if you get a Republican light in there, or a conservative light, or somebody who views the Constitution as flexible or whatever? What happens then? We continue down this same path, maybe at a slower rate, but we're still going down this path.
I just don't. It scares me to think that it could happen.
It could happen.
And it makes me wonder if we could really sustain that long.
It could happen.
And hold on. Well, there's a caller. Let's see what the caller thinks. Hey, you're on the air, Sackheads Radio. Do you have a question? Apparently, my dad called in.
What did he just say?
I don't know, but I don't think it was nice.
If you're going to call in our show and be a knucklehead, spare us, because we're just going to hang up on you.
So,
don't call in with racist remarks. Don't call in and start swearing at people. If you have an intelligent argument, no matter which side of the aisle you fall on or which side of the argument you fall on, please feel free to present it. Be more than happy to talk to you, have a conversation, a debate, whatever. But if you're going to call in and act like a jackass, don't.
Yeah. So, November's right around the corner. People, do your homework. You know, especially locally for your senators and your congressmen and women. You really have to do your homework. Choose the people that are the best for the country and choose the people that are going to follow the Constitution. We got about a minute left. Any closing thoughts?
I got a lot of closing thoughts. I don't want to get into it right now.
I'll give you the last minute.
No.
Okay.
Because it's going to take more than a minute, and I'm going to throw something.
Fine, I'll take the whole minute then. Thanks for joining us this week. Join us next Friday night, same time. We have another interview, and I'm going to announce that in a few days. I just want to make sure that we're 100% locked in. You can find us on Twitter at Sackheads, Facebook on facebook.com/SackheadsRadio. Check our website, www.sackheads.com. Our forums on conservativeoutcry.net. Am I forgetting anything?
No, I'm responding to some knucklehead on our...
So, thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you next week. And, don't piss Clint off.
Due to the graphic nature of this program, listener discretion is advised.